Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and I have Sarah Garcia, Moon Girl, here with me, and you're watching the Paranormal Dolls. We'd like to thank all of our viewers and our followers for constantly letting us know and supporting us that you love the show and all of our guests. And today
we love you guys back.
Today we have a beautiful returning guest. She is one that does it all and continues to amaze the world. She just keeps coming up with new things and supporting and healing and just an all-around great soul. Hi, Sheena Meadow.
Hi, how are you? Thank you both for having me. This is my favorite time of year, so I love that I get to share an hour with the two of you.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for being here.
It's definitely October, right?
It is. It is October. It's the most beautiful time of the year.
Yes,
absolutely.
I even got, look at that.
Oh,
spider
nice, fancy,
sexy.
Well, I am going to my son's wedding this weekend.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations with the spider fingernails. That's pretty awesome.
I asked them, did they want anything special? No, whatever you want. Okay.
Oh, okay. They're not making you have like a mother of pearl French tips to be mother of this groom?
No.
Okay.
No. They're really good. They wanted to make it a costume wedding, but it didn't work out that way.
I did that once at the Houdini Mansion. Two of my friends got married as the sun was setting on Samhain. And we all wore masquerade outfits at the Houdini Mansion, which is gone. The mansion burned down, but the coach house is still there. The guest house is there. And then there's a big outdoor grounds. So it was really cool. I thought, what a great idea for a wedding.
Oh, yes, agreed.
Wow.
I hope you took pictures because I want to see.
Oh, I have pictures. Yeah. Some people were all steampunk. I was not. I was just in a black dress with a mask. But they sent an invitation that you opened the invitation. It was a mask, and you opened the mask, and the mask had the invitation under it. The whole thing was just so interesting.
So cute.
When the grooms changed for the reception, they changed into like 1700s satin outfits, satin Mardi Gras. I mean, amazing. So the reception was all Mardi Gras. Fantastic. So people are so inventive, and what a wonderful way to get married. But there's nothing like being outdoors on Samhain as the sun sets and being at a wedding. I mean, just amazing, right? My little Irish witch's heart just blew out of its chest.
Yes. The love. Oh,
right. The love and the holiday mixed together. I always say that everybody has a bunch of years that they consider like a new year start. So for me, obviously January 1st and my birthday, which is April 2nd, but also for me, it's Celtic New Year. It's Samhain. I consider November 1st to October 31st a year for me too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, my eldest got married on October 31st, a couple of years back. And we're trying to convince now my daughter to get married October 30th so we can make it a whole, 3 days and celebrate all their anniversaries together.
Beautiful. Weddings in Scorpio are very lucky too. Two of my best friends are in 30+ year marriages and they got married in Scorpio.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's hard to find these days.
It is. Yeah. All three of my best girlfriends are all in, four of them are all in 30+ year relationships. I'm the oddball. So I'm the non-traditional one, but what else? Life is what life deals you when it deals you, right? You can't fight the power.
No.
Being single's wonderful too, though. I enjoy it immensely.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in a lot of really long-term relationships. I've just never been married, and honestly, I don't have any urge to be married. But I have not been in a 30-year relationship. And with the relationships I've been in, that was actually a good thing that none of them lasted 30 years. But yeah, I love my space, and I love being with the cat. we really groove together, and our birthdays are 2 days apart. So we're just a couple of weird Aries living in a house together. And as long as he doesn't, put things in his mouth, we're okay. That's my biggest problem every day is, am I going to come home and find he's put something in his mouth? It's nice that's your only worry.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now I'm in my third long-term relationship.
Third time's a charm, baby.
Yep. Lucky 3, babe. Your trinity is complete.
I think at this point I'm just like,
was more than enough for me. Once was more than, I was like, nice, not for me, but thank you. Everyone needs to practice marriage. It's like a free trial. You get 6 months or a year. Oh, it's not for me, thanks. I'm not gonna.
I think you should get that for most relationships. You should get a 12-month free trial.
Yes, free trial is good.
If you want to pay or not.
Yes.
Sometimes you've already
I will not
paid
be re-signing that lease. Thank you, sir. Goodbye.
Exactly. Yes, thank you, but no. I'll take my parting gift.
Yes. You know what? Marriage is not for everyone, though. Or conventionally being married is not for everyone.
No.
And it's not the same anymore. Like, the pressure on women. You gotta get married and have all these kids and whatever. It's gone. You can live unconventionally now, and it's more accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I don't look back at any of them and think, oh God, I wish I'd married that one. I just look back and I think, oh God, I'm so glad I didn't marry that one. I mean, not in an angsty way, right? You let go with love, but as my best friend says, namaste away, right? I love you, but please, I'm so glad I didn't marry you and have to sit in an attorney's office for 6 months to get rid of you. And
Yeah, well, 6 months is quick.
Take all your stuff. Don't take the cat. That's my rule. Take all your stuff and leave the cat.
So we should
this conversation
is the best.
This conversation's making me want to completely stay single forever. You see, I'm not being disturbed whatsoever.
Come to the dark side, Sarah. Come to the dark side.
I've been there for a long time. Okay, so I'm happy here. It's safe here.
Oh Lord. Ladies. There's good and bad in everything.
There sure is.
There is. This feels good and it feels right.
Yeah. I have a friend that said a beautiful thing once. He said, I don't believe in right and wrong. I just believe in right and wrong for me.
Right.
And I think that's awesome. I mean, I do kind of believe in right and wrong in some instances.
Right.
But I think it's right. We have to think about what's right for you and what's not right for you. And I think it's weird in our society. And we have to always remember in the United States that we are descendant of Puritan ethics, even if our ancestors weren't, because mine all were famine Irish. But even if they didn't come from that ethic is, we've inherited it like an adopted parent in this country. Right. And so we are very encouraging of people to get married and to partner up. And I find at times when I'm single that I'm not currently, but I find at times when I'm single that people are constantly trying to fix me up. Like everybody, I've got a really great mailman, or you know what, you're gonna really love the dental hygienist lady. And I'm like, no, thank you, no. But I mean, I think it's that thing that we try to, and I think that for those of us that live unconventional lives in many ways, I mean, as spiritually is a great example of how the three of us live unconventional lives. Mm-hmm. I think it's so important that we encourage people to do what's best for them and not feel like pressured to do what they think society wants them to do. And not feel like you have to get married, or not feel like you have to be in a relationship, or not feel like you have to do, one of the things I love the most about my fellow queer people was that there was no marriage. And then suddenly it became legal and they all got married after 2 weeks. And I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't the cool thing about us that we didn't have to get married if we didn't want to? Now
everyone's allowed to be miserable, so let us.
Exactly. Now there's more pressure there than from the straight people. And I'm like, are you guys kidding me? So yeah, I mean, just let people be who they are. Everybody has their own path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like hand fasting, because you can make it for a year and a day and then decide whether you're going to make it permanent or not.
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what the other half and I did. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
supposed to still decide whether we're making it permanent or not.
Oh, you never, how long's it been? You still haven't given the word?
No, it's been since
Oh,
2018. We hand fasted in 2018.
okay. So you're still rocking that free trial.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm still rocking that free trial.
Okay.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I mean, you know, we're a partner, we're
Yes.
partners, and the whole thing, but and so everybody we're you know, we did the thing, but yeah, that's that signature in my hand just doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Wouldn't it be
a
great, though,
runaway
if that's,
airtime.
if that's what relationships were, instead of everybody, and I know you all deal with this with your clients, right? I like this guy. I've seen him twice. Are we going to wind up together? Oh my goodness. You just met him twice and you already want to know if he's the one. How about we just, like, every year we one up a relationship, like every relationship contract is a year. And at the end of the year, we decide if we're still into it. I think that would keep everything so fresh and so exciting. And people would stop feeling that feeling like, oh my God, I'm stuck with you forever. What if you just want to be with somebody forever? But I think that feeling of, you know, you kiss somebody and that's it. It's the end of your life forever, forever, forever.
The end of your life.
I think it scares people. I think if we just kept it fresh and open-ended, and we're here because we want to be, and not because we feel like the hand of God is going to come down and condemn us if we break up. I think it would be so much more exciting. I think we think about relationships in a whole different way.
And it's true. That's why I like it the way I have it right now. Where
and you never know if you can even make it the whole year or not. Like, let's be honest. Sometimes
you don't have to.
It's shorter. So, you know.
And you know, put everybody in different situations, because after you're officially married, to go out, say, and see how they act in a restaurant, it's not the time. That's the time to do it beforehand.
Yes, right. To find out how much underwear winds up on the floor. You want to know that right off the bat, not after you've gotten married. How much underwear is going to be on the floor? It's a test.
Yes.
The traveling too. You need to travel with this person before you decide to make it official. That's when you see people's true colors, and when you live with them, you know, when you cohabit, you're like, oh, okay, this may not be for me, or it is for me, but I think those are some of, like, the most important things.
Yes, honestly. Think about it. For the rest of your life, so speaking, you're going to have to deal with the good and the bad. And are you able to deal with the good and the bad together?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. You know, people, it's like, oh, that gooey love at first sight type of thing, that goes away. That's just sex appeal. That goes away after a while. Okay, because the thing is, you have to look at this person and still find, okay, they got their issues, I got mine, but I could deal with those issues, so it's okay. He deals with mine or she deals with mine. Okay, you know what? We could probably make it and keep it fresh, because the knowledge that you're not stuck together, like Sheena said.
Yeah.
Oh, that is the worst. When you all of a sudden it comes to you and you're like, oh, what did I sign up for? I could swear I must have not read that fine print. Shame on me.
That's why you need to pull out the big, like, glasses, bifocals, just to read the fine print.
Exactly. Where it says, you can opt out at any time, really small at the bottom.
Yes.
Opt out at any time.
Oh, Lord.
Cancel your subscription.
So now that we probably got a few people angry at us, it's okay.
I just, I love love. I'm all about love. I just think love should be love, and we shouldn't think of it as so much as a contract.
Right.
Even with our life contracts, like, when sometimes I see, like, in my beloved New Age community, so many people like justifying their bad behavior with, well, it was in my spiritual contract.
Yeah. Dude, you could choose. You could choose.
Every message that I've ever received from spirit has been very much about, look, you and I, you the human and us the spirit, we're working on this on a day-to-day basis. We could change this at any time. You could change this at any time. There is no quote unquote spiritual contract that you make before you're born and then you're just following a script. There's really no learning and growing in that. The learning and the growing comes in the, oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow? So, so I think the idea that everything is like, I can't change my life because it's my contract. I just think we need to get out of that that's a human thing. It's not a spiritual.
We have free will. If you don't like something, you can choose to do something about it,
We may have signed up to learn a lesson.
Yeah.
Sure. By how we learn it is up to us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what we allow and who we allow around us. Obviously, if someone who's not a great person, it's not in your spirit or a contract to have this horrible person or marriage with you. You know, you can choose to be like, you know what? No, thank you. Friendship, love, whatever, work. And you can still learn whatever lesson it is that you're going to learn, but not with this situation that's not working for you.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
So
very true.
So Sheena, what have you been up to?
Outside of just pissing off married people, I think
it's okay. They probably don't like me either.
I spend my days. I'm so busy. I'm laughing the other day because I'm so busy that I have to like write on my list, shower and eat. And I love being this busy. I hope I can keep this up forever. Sometimes I wonder, am I going to be able to do this when I'm 75 and be this busy? I started a new show.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That I love. That's my dream show. It's on MADtv and it's called Messages from Spirit. And basically it's 8 real people every hour ask me questions and I get answers from spirit for them. And it's kind of the show I've always wanted to do. I'm so excited about it. And every Wednesday, it's my favorite thing. Herding people, regular people, it's a bit like herding cats because unlike, people in the entertainment business who know how to sign up and do a show, these are folks that have never been on camera before. So sometimes they get nervous and you got to work them through it. And that's all part of the fun. And I love that. I think it's a super rewarding show and I'm honored to be on such a great network and I'm starting another show for them. I'm saying before the end of the year, but it might wind up being the beginning of next year, which is going to be called Confessions of a Paranormal Survivor, which I am. I grew up in a very active negative house as a kid outside of Baltimore, Maryland. And so it's going to be interviewing other paranormal survivors about their experiences in homes or workplaces, whether they were kids or adults. So I love that network. And then I do my weekly talk show, the Sheena Metal Experience, which is kind of where I bring my spiritual world and my creative world together and interview folks about how spirituality and creativity work as one. That's for KGRA, the Digital Broadcast Network, and I do that every Friday afternoon. So those are my TV shows. And then I do 2 radio shows for iHeartRadio, Raising the Vibration and Haunted Playground. And I'm starting a new one, again, before the end of the year, the beginning of next year, called Side by Side, where I'm working alongside a wellness coach, talking about how to heal people from a spiritual perspective and from a psychological perspective at the same time, which is kind of another dream I've always wanted to do. So I'm excited about that. It's been a long time since I've had a co-host. I'm sorry?
Congratulations. And I love the idea about having other paranormal, investigators or mediums telling you about their story growing up, because it was difficult for me when I was a kid. So I'm sure it's going to be very relatable to other people.
Absolutely. You'll have to come be a guest and talk about it.
I'm down whenever you want.
I think it's a thing we don't talk about. One of my very best friends is Andrea Perrin, who grew up in the Conjuring house. And she filmed a pilot last year and I was a guest on her first season that she filmed for her show. And what they really wanted me to focus on my episode was that house that I grew up in and sort of how she and I bonded over having that similar childhood. She goes back to the farmhouse all the time. I don't ever need to go back to that house. only if somebody paid me a lot of money when I go back there. But talking about how, we talk a lot about different kinds of abuse that kids suffer, whether it's in the home, it's physical, emotional, sexual, bullying at school, but we don't talk about paranormal abuse. And a lot of kids grow up in haunted houses, feeling and seeing a lot of scary stuff. And you're not supposed to talk about it because, again, that Puritan ethic that, has come down to us, ghosts aren't real, they're against God. And especially for folks that live in very traditional religious communities, it's something you just can't discuss.
Right.
So it's this kind of thing that builds up in you, and it does affect you as an adult. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm in my 50s and I sleep with the light on and I sleep with the TV on. And I probably, not if I'm with somebody, but when I'm alone, I don't like it when I'm with somebody, but I understand somebody else might need the dark. But I always have a night light. I never sleep in total darkness. And when I'm by myself or just me and the cat, we sleep with the TV on and we sleep with lights on. And my house has salt lamps in every room, at least 2. My office here, I'm thinking, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 10 salt lamps in here. And I have selenite wands and selenite towers in every room. And I have protection brooms in every room because I don't want to live in another haunted house. So my house is like warded to the max. And my cat, every once in a while, he'll look at something and I'm like, Mommy doesn't want to know. Don't tell Mommy. Mommy doesn't want to see that. So, I don't want to repeat that experience, and it will follow me the rest of my life. And it all started when I was 9. So, and it doesn't just happen to sensitive folks that grow up and become psychics. It also happens to just regular kids that are in a place that is projecting so strongly that even the least gifted, spiritually gifted person is going to pick up on it. And I think it's weird for adults, but it's terrifying, but it's also extra terrifying for kids. I mean, look at the kids that grew up in the Amityville house. I mean, all of them carrying their own stuff, and all the parent kids carrying their own stuff. It's a lot. And so I'm hoping the show will help people. That's how I originally just wanted to be a camaraderie. Because I remember when I first started calling myself a paranormal survivor, and I would do shows. I remember I did the Beyond Reality show with J.V. Johnson and Jason Hawes. And I remember Jason Hawes saying, "What is a paranormal survivor? I've never heard that term before." And I'm thinking, it's what happens to you when you grow up in a place like that. So I really wanted, that's my big outreach that I'm trying now. And along with that, I found it, I moved, well, last year, because I've done both your shows and this one, I moved back to my hometown and moved into my childhood home. And it was going to be a temp to fix it up and rent it. And then I fell in love with it, and the cat and I stayed. And eventually I'll probably live between the city and here, but now I'm pretty much always here. And, when I was growing up here, this was a very evangelical community. So you couldn't talk about ghosts. I remember my boss's wife coming over once and telling my mom if they were going to have the Super Bowl party, she had to put her fairies and her dragons away because there was such an evangelical ethic surrounding anything that wasn't Christian.
Right.
And so a lot of people I know grew up in this town, which is very haunted, and people never talked about it. Now the community calls Huntington Beach Hauntington Beach, which I think is hysterical because basically the whole town is either built on native shamanic ground or native burial ground. And my house is actually below sea level. So you could probably guess which one of the grounds mine was. And so I founded Surf City Paranormal, because Huntington Beach is Surf City, to start gathering people to help people who are living in or have grown up in houses like this, that because of the community they grew up in, they weren't allowed to talk about it. So I think that's sort of the next phase of my spiritual outreach, is helping people who have been damaged by exposure to negative paranormal activity.
I think that's great. A wonderful idea.
It is. It's wonderful. Because especially kids, I mean, they see things and then they get to hear, "Shut up, you're crazy. It's your imagination." And thankfully, my mother was open to all that.
Yeah.
But I could see how bad it would have been on me if she wasn't.
That's what we did for, it was so hard for me, like telling them and stuff. And Wouldn't believe until maybe like way years later when I was in 7th grade. After all the years I had been telling them, when they finally saw it, then they're like, okay. So, you know, I think it's a wonderful idea that you're doing that.
Yeah, and you know, I was just, my father only started to believe it after my mother died, and he started seeing my mother.
Yeah.
That's when he finally came to me and apologized.
Yeah.
But in all that time, I was like, Dad, you really don't see this? Come on. Like,
yeah.
I see it completely. What are you talking about?
You know, my father was in complete denial about it. I'm an only child, so it's just the 3 of us. And he was in such complete denial, and he called us crazy so many times. And then in my early 40s, I produced a paranormal documentary that I was in, and I brought it to show to them at Christmas. And for the first time, my dad, who was an engineer and liked robots more than people, and was a hardcore lapsed Catholic / atheist, saw machines capturing paranormal activity. And suddenly it became real to him because machines were telling him it was real, because he liked machines more than people. Right. And so out of the blue, he says on Christmas Day to my mother and me, you know, when we lived in that house, and he got that much out. And my mom said, oh no, don't you tell me after all those years you saw something. And he said, every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody who looked like a Franciscan monk would come through the wall, sit on the end of the bed, and just stare at me. And then he would get up and walk through the wall, and he was gone. But I didn't think it was paranormal. Oh my God, you have never seen anything like my Irish Scorpio mother losing her ever-loving mind after I thought the screaming was never going to end after, 30 years of him telling her she was crazy. And it turns out he was seeing a full body apparition every night that was making eye contact, but had completely dismissed it as not paranormal because that wasn't in his intellectual and emotional periphery, right? That wasn't a thing that was believable. Therefore, that thing couldn't have happened. Even though that man read science fiction day and night, he didn't believe it was possible until he saw EVPs and heard EVPs, and he saw night vision cameras picking up things. And then suddenly it became a reality to him. And I think that was a very angsty time for my mom. But I also think for average people that did not grow up with very spiritual parents like my mother was, who fostered their spirituality and their belief in the unknown, having the TV shows out there and the documentaries like that, whether they're reality based or they're scripted stories, are wonderful for people to start to realize, hey, you know what, this stuff is around us, and maybe we need to stop pretending it's not, and start all being a little more open to what might be out there. Yep.
And stop telling people that they're crazy.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. So I know you probably have told this many times, but just give us an example of what you experienced in that house.
Oh,
besides
goodness.
the monk.
Well, from yes, I never saw the monk. So a couple interesting things happened. My mother had gotten very withdrawn in that house and very depressed. And my father had always kind of been very depressed. And I think being separated from my friends, we moved there from Chicago when I was little, and we had moved to Chicago from Connecticut when I was even littler. It was the 3rd move. We bought this place in the middle of nowhere, halfway between Baltimore and the Pennsylvania border. And there was literally like a court with 13 houses, and there was nothing else for miles. And our backyard went sloped like this. It was 2 acres, great for sledding. And then at the bottom was a fence, and beyond the fence was the Gunpowder River. So it was right by water. I mean, it's everything you can imagine, right? It was where they hid the house at the bottom of the hill, which was number 1. We were number 9. 5. We were 5. It was called Wagon Wheel Court. If anybody wants to go look it up, go find it. One Wagon Wheel Court used to own the entire property at one point, and their bragging rights was that's where they hid Confederate soldiers. So there was a huge Civil War thing surrounding the area. Just a perfect storm, right? So when I was maybe 9 or 10, I started having this feeling like something was pressing down on me in the night and I couldn't move. And that happened for a while, and I didn't tell anybody. And then I started seeing a guy who came to me and told me that his name was David, which was the name of one of my cousins. So at first I thought, well, maybe that's my cousin, because he had come to stay with us for a while when we lived in Chicago. And then he would turn into something else that was very 1800s dressed and grow a beard. And then the laying on top of me thing would start again. And that was about the time I told my mom, I think I need to go see a psychologist. My mom was a therapist, and amongst other things, and my grandmother was a psychologist. So going to see a therapist was not a scary thing, although I had not been to one. I said, I think I'm going crazy, and maybe this move has affected me, or I don't know what's going on, but something's wrong. And then my mom said, oh, sweetheart, sit down and let me tell you about this house. So we sort of compared stories, and that was about, I think when my mom realized that it was affecting me, that was when she started fighting back. And that was now we know that's the worst thing you can do. Don't give them attention. But again, Irish Scorpio depression era person, you blankety blank ghost, I'm going to get you and do this to you. And, the kind of thing that worked with humans, but because she could be scary. But it just got worse. So it was like you'd walk in the kitchen and a can of something would fly out of a cabinet and practically hit you in the head. Or the water would be turned all the time. The gas burner would turn on all the time. The doors would slam. You'd hear somebody walking back and forth upstairs on the ceiling, scratching behind the walls. My mom used to see this big black caped winged thing that would hover around her. And she used to say that my dad was a hoverer. My dad would do this weird thing where if he didn't know what to do, sometimes he'd stand behind you and kind of go from foot to foot. She turned around once when she was setting the thermostat and said, I'm capable of setting the thermostat on my own. And she turned around thinking it was him, and this winged thing just went and disappeared. So, there was a lot of stuff. There were animals that would go crazy. There was a snapping turtle that kept trying to kill my dad, and these two copperhead snakes that would literally come to the patio and knock their heads on the glass and drive the dogs crazy.
Can you please tell me about the snapping turtle? I'm sorry, I want to know about
this giant snapping turtle. It would find my dad and it would go after him. And so many memories of me were my dad with a shovel trying to get it away, and it would be like attacking. I didn't know that turtles attacked, but on this property, everything attacked. The neighbors attacked, like everything was crazy. And our two dogs who had grown up together and were best friends, at one point, the little one, she became obsessed with going into my bedroom at like 11 o'clock at night. And then she would be there for like a little while, and then she would come out and try to kill the other dog. So my mom started keeping my door closed at night if I wasn't in there, so that she couldn't come in, because there was something talking to her in that room.
Right.
And that room, the whole place was just terrifying. And it never, we had a finished basement, and my best friends used to come over and spend the night down there. We had beds down there and a bathroom and a TV and couches, and things it had an outside entrance that you could come to from the side yard down the steps into the door, and things would come and like knock on the tick, 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 tick on the glass. And it just never stopped, right? We were never at peace. We never felt good. There was never any respite. And the only way we got out, because my father loved the place. He didn't see anything except the monk. He didn't feel anything. We were crazy. It was his favorite place. And thank God one day they told him, you're being transferred to California, and we moved here. And, to the Indian burial ground. So out of the frying pan into the fire. But a different situation than that house. And it's funny because when I was going to do Andrea's show and they wanted pictures, my best friend lives in Pennsylvania. One of my best friends from junior high lives in Pennsylvania now, but her mom still lives down there. And she said, I got to go visit my mom. Let me drive by and take pictures of the house. And it's abandoned, which is weird because nothing else on the street is abandoned. And it has all this like ivy growing up all over it. And if you look at it from the Google Earth, you can't even really see it because so much overgrowth has happened.
Wow.
It just looks like a giant lawn. It's the weirdest thing. And it's just everything about it was the day we moved there, the neighbor lady got drunk and set the lawn on fire. And my mom used to always say, we should have run then.
Yeah.
And she didn't want it. She said when she walked into the house, she felt like 1,000 arms were saying, no, no, no. But my mom was a brilliant psychic medium, although not out of the closet at that time. She didn't talk about it, but my father fell in love with it, and he hated. And even when we lived here, he always be like, "I don't know why we can't go back to that house." He was, as sometimes that happens in a haunted situation, right? Where one person in the house is like in the eye of the hurricane, and it's almost like seducing them, and then everybody else in the house is being abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You love that house.
It's amazing because the number 13, which for me is lucky, but it's strange because normally even in elevators, they don't put 13. They don't house numbers, normally they don't put 13. So it's really interesting that owner decided to do 13.
Yeah. And interesting that that it was built in such a strange place with nothing else around except for that river. And then our yard took you down to the river, and then if you went back up from the river, you were at the Maryland School for Boys. Like if you've ever seen the movie Cry Baby with Johnny Depp, that's where he was. And they would escape and come up to our neighborhood and break into houses and steal the cars. I mean, it was like everything about the neighborhood was insanity. But including that old lady that lived down at the end of the block who proudly would tell you how many Civil War soldiers her ancestors hid. My mom one night, they built a laundry room to connect the garage and the house.
Right.
It had a big giant window. And my mom was up one night late doing laundry, and she looked out the window, and the entire front lawn was a Civil War encampment. And she looked down at herself, and she was in a Black Victorian mourning dress.
Wow.
So there was just a lot of activity there. And I think the fact that she was an untapped psychic and I was an untapped psychic about to go into puberty, and my father probably now would have been diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Right. I think that we were like the perfect storm for paranormal activity.
Now, were you ever tempted after you moved away from any of your haunted houses? Were you ever tempted to knock on the door and see who's there next and kind of warn them? Because I know I was tempted. I never did it, but I was very tempted to be like, don't move here. Like after my house, after we moved out of that one, I lived in a couple of haunted places, it was abandoned for the longest time. And I knew why. Eventually somebody, moved in, but I was always tempted to just go knock and be like, leave. This place is haunted. It's horrible. So did you ever think about that, or did you ever do that?
Did you I was a kid, not, but I'll tell you an interesting thing. We lived in this was our 4th house since I was born, 4 states. My parents lived in 3 places before that, including their first house on Long Island that they built. Every house that we ever moved to, they fixed the house up and they sold it for so much more money. That house, they fixed it up and they couldn't sell it. And it sat on the market for like a year and a half. And because we had moved here to a much more expensive area, they were starting to really hurt. My father's work was helping them out till the house sold, because that was part of the conditions of his transfer. But finally, they wound up selling it for like $20,000 more than they bought it for, even though they bought it in fixer-upper shape and they fix it up really nice. When I looked at it, when I did Andrea's show last year, and I looked at it on Zillow and on Redfin, it was listed for the exact same amount of money that we were trying to sell it for in 1980.
Wow.
So it hasn't even increased in value, which in this country is unheard of.
Very unheard of.
It just kind of, and a year and a half or so ago when I did Andrea's show was right in the middle of the real estate boom. It just, nobody wants it. I mean, it is the most bizarre thing. I don't know how long it's been on the market. I probably looked and I don't remember now. I'll have to look that up, see how long the last owner had it. But I think only one other person ever lived there after us. and
Wow.
it's been there abandoned for a long time. But the rest of the street is beautiful. The rest of the cul-de-sac might be scary inside, but it's not like every house is overgrown. It's just that place. So, and a lot of strange things happened before we got there. The folks that lived there before us were very bad alcoholics. And I remember when my parents were pulling up the rugs, the rugs and the pads were like soaked with dried vomit and urine and blood. So I don't know what happened there or what kind of party was going on there, but apparently it was one that involved a lot of fluids. So I think there was just a darkness that, you know, the neighbor lady that kept trying to find ways to kill herself. And it's I think some ground, and it's going to sound very Stephen King, but I think some ground is just bad.
Yeah.
No, it is. I agree.
And
we built that house from the ground up, and it was horrible. It wasn't like, oh my God, somebody lived there first. Maybe there's bad juju energy. But no, as soon as we used to go look at it, you know, like, oh, this is where we're going to build that. And I always felt a really ugly feeling there. And we built the house, weird, random. All of a sudden, we got all these weird bugs and scorpions, and all, like, we're like, what? We just built it. It's like one thing after another that it just felt like it was very tainted land. It was just tainted. One thing after another. And even when we left and people had broken in the house, a friend of mine told me that they went in there and they looked, the door was open. They broke through the windows. There was people's bloody underwear, and it was just like one thing hanging from the ceiling. It was just like the weirdest stuff that I kept hearing, you know. And then people moved in. I don't know what happened, but it was just like very negative, and just all I can say is like it was tainted. That was it. Like no matter what.
I think that's the thing. You know, my when I was a kid, I remember seeing the Amityville Horror on the book stands and asking my mom if she was going to read it, and her saying, "I will never read that book." And I thought that was weird because she used to tell these stories of how when I was one, she read Rosemary's Baby, and she would look at me and be scared I was going to become the devil baby. Spoiler for people who haven't seen Rosemary's Baby. And she took me to see The Shining when I was really young. So she loved the supernatural, but she wouldn't read that book. So maybe 10 years ago, I was interviewing some filmmakers that were there doing a documentary, and they said that the town had kind of blocked them from staying in Amityville, so they were staying in Huntington. And I said, how far is Huntington? It's a weird thing about my parents. They were married in Huntington, Long Island, and they died in Huntington Beach, California. So that's a weird thing. I said, and they said, oh, Huntington, it's just right across Long Island from Amityville. So I called my mom and I said, how come you never told me that the place where you and Dad got married was like literally right across from Amityville? And she said, honey, before even that book came out, there was something about that town. I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't go to that town. We didn't go there to eat. I didn't go there to shop. I didn't drive by that town. And when I saw that book and I saw it was Amityville, I said, I'm never reading that book. So there was something about that town itself that freaked my mom out when she was, you know, in her mid-20s and didn't have any idea about her gifts. But even though she'd had experiences, but she just knew there was something about that town and she wanted nothing to do with it. And my mom grew up outside of Poughkeepsie in the Hudson River Valley that we all know is like a UFO playground. And she saw that stuff when she was growing up. And she had a hat man that had followed her since she was a young girl in Louisville, Kentucky. And still she wouldn't go to Amityville. So I think they're just places and things and houses. And I hate to say this, people that are just bad, like tainted, Sarah, is a perfect word. Something is just not right. And I think we just have to do our best to avoid things like that if we can.
I agree. And I'm glad you said people, because
just people that are just bad.
And it's funny because other people may not see it, but they have other people fooled, but you see it and you feel the energy. And you're like, I don't care what you think. I know this is not. And I need to be around.
And you just walk away nice and slow.
Right. Somebody tried to convince me once. It was this whole argument about, and the argument, I was maybe in my 30s and I was at a party, and the argument was about Charles Manson just had a bad childhood and all the things that had happened to him. And it is true, a lot of very tragic things happened to him. mother was a prostitute and he had sexual abuse at a young, I mean, I get it. And that does mess you up. But the look in those eyes that thing had, I don't even know we call it a person. The look in the eyes that Charles Manson had, that's not just I had a bad childhood. I'm carrying something with me that is channeling through me. And you're not seeing a person's eyes when you look in those eyes. You're seeing the however many attachments he carried around with him for however many decades.
And I'm going to throw something out there. What you're saying, the way he looked, like Chinese face readings, because I also do that. He has what we call the snake eyes. So if you notice in pictures, the white, like Simpako eyes, but instead of here, it's up here. And that's whenever someone has that, which I notice a lot of serial killers and murderers have that, it's someone who's about to commit a crime or is about to do something crazy, you know, that could possibly kill people, you know, that being one of them. And sure enough, there's a bunch of videos and pictures where you can see the snake eye, the white part up here. So that part's true right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Sheena, as always, it's been a tremendous pleasure.
You're very welcome.
Tell us again your latest show so people can find them and
sure. KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network, the Sheena Metal Experience, every Friday at 3:00 Pacific time. On iHeartRadio, Raising the Vibration and Haunted Playground are on Tuesday and on Thursday at 3:00 Pacific time, respectively. The new show on Parapod TV, Messages from Spirit, is every Wednesday live at 2:00 Pacific time. And my new shows, Confessions of a Paranormal Survivor, will be on Parapod TV, and Side by Side will be on iHeartRadio. And I'm always doing more fun things and getting people involved. This year coming up, I'm going to do a lot more in-person stuff because I miss that, and a lot more online workshops because I miss those. I'm at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. Everywhere on social media, just at Sheena Metal. And I love when you reach out and text me. So I'm going to give you my phone number. It's 818-437-0886. I'm very accessible by text. It's the easiest way to reach me. And I do turn my phone off when I go to bed, so you can text me at any hour of the day or night. And sometimes if you just need some love and you need a reason why you're on the earth and you're feeling hopeless or alone, text me and I will text you back and I will tell you why you're here and why you should stay and that everything's going to be okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
But don't get married. No, I'm totally kidding.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank
you, Sarah. And thank you to everyone who was here. And again, as always, we love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.